So putting the odds in your favor. Motorcycle riding is dangerous. No way around that, but how dangerous is it? So I put this together to really figure out just how dangerous it is and who's at the greatest risk and what exactly is happening. Because it's too easy to say, oh, it's dangerous, I'm not going to do it. But let's really find out what's dangerous about it. So the vast majority of riders don't get hurt. I mean, I've had crashes on my motorcycle, but I've had very few on the street, and they were just minor, the ones that were. And the rest of them were in motorcycle training courses. And so I've been a bit lucky as well, but also all my crashes, I've been fully geared up, and that makes all the difference in the world as well. Because there's a lot of things you can do to reduce your odds. And so we're gonna take a look at the big picture of things. We're not just gonna look at motorcycling because just living life is dangerous. And so when I look at the big picture, the big reasons in Canada that you may die from are cancer, stroke, and respiratory diseases. Those are the big reasons. I mean, those are health related, some is genetics, but how much we exercise and what we eat is the biggest factor. Now, those illnesses happen later in life, but they can certainly happen earlier in life as well. So our health is the biggest factor. Now, if you add in motorcycling, of course, that's going to add a risk to it, but let's be calculated about it and be smart about it. So this is the big chart of what goes on in Canada, but when it's transport related, moving around, we find that motorcyclists make up about 300 to 400 deaths per year. Now this chart's from 2011, so I'm sure the numbers have changed a bit. More population, more people riding, so more things happen. But that doesn't mean, transport accidents are a much higher number, but that's more people drive. I get that, less people ride. But you can fall down stairs and steps, and that's 700 people kill themselves from that. So there's lots of different ways to take each other out. And yes, we're adding motorcycling into it, but it's not that bad. Now, with how complicated motorcycle riding is, it makes sense why it's more risky. Because we're doing so much, like with your left hand, right hand, left foot, and right foot, it's doing something different all at the same time. Like how many skills or tasks do you do during the day that require use of all your limbs at the same time while at 50 kilometers an hour? So it is very, very complicated. So if you play musical instruments, yeah, you could very well be, that takes a lot of work to do, but add in speed, that's a whole different skill set right then and there. That requires about 1,500 sub-skills going on at all times. Like the amount of information you're getting as you ride down the road and you're expected to operate that motorcycle perfectly, that's tough. But it's not impossible at all. What I'm trying to do here is just bring light to how complicated it is, but how rewarding that is as well if you can do it and do it well. So let's say you're traveling at 50 kilometers an hour. This can be 1,320 items of information every minute. That's like reading 3 paragraphs while looking at lots of pictures in a minute or less. It's a lot of information. So you're not going to get 100% of things out there. Even when we're at our best, none of us can be 100%. But yeah, lots to do. So let's focus on British Columbia for a moment. There's over 300,000 motorcycle licenses in BC. Now, they don't all ride. Only about a third ride motorcycles. Motorcycle riding is something that comes and goes in people's lives. Like, it totally consumed my life. But for others and most, it's something they're going to ride for a while, and then they'll get away from it, and they might come back. So there's 117,000 motorcycles insured every year. These numbers are from 2018. Now, in that year, there's 2,300 crashes. 1,500 had injuries and 51 people died. And this was actually an above average year. The number is typically lower. So that's really sad that 51 people died. But when I look at that from a percentage point, that is a 0.004% chance of dying. That's a very small percentage. So I'm okay with that. To me, that's an acceptable amount of risk. What makes me a little more nervous is that it's a 2% chance of crashing. I don't want to crash. I'd be totally fine not crashing ever again on a motorcycle. But it's still an acceptable amount of risk for me to keep riding. Now, one thing that's really interesting is close calls. We've all had close calls in our life, and probably more than one. And so when there is a major accident or a fatality, there's typically a bunch of injuries associated with that were close calls. But out of all those moments that it could have gone really awful, there's about 300 close call moments. Now, it's not for one individual, it's on a whole. I mean, so it's there's a lot of luck out there too. And so I imagine you can probably think back to some close calls in your life, and you probably had more than one, and that's just how it is. Well, when it's our time, it's our time. Say, fatalities, the big reasons. Okay, so we had 51 people dying in BC in 2018. Why? What's going on there? Well, alcohol was a big one. It was a third of the deaths. And that's standard in the United States as well. And that's what that means is the motorcycle rider had a drink, maybe 10 drinks, and then went for a motorcycle ride. And you need so much focus when you ride, and even one drink affects you. So it's understandable that's such a big number with motorcycle deaths. Now, you can make a decision to never drink and ride a motorcycle. That's in your control. And by doing that, you're a third less likely to die on a motorcycle. That's pretty good trade-off right then and there. The other reason is speeding. Easy to speed on motorcycles, even small ones. They accelerate quick and it's fun. You get caught up in the moment. I get it. This is the biggest thing that I have to discipline myself with is speeding. So that needs a little bit of control. But again, that's in your control. The other one I found interesting was 28% of people who died on a motorcycle didn't have a valid license. There are so many people out there that never get a motorcycle license and just ride around anyway. And it shows in the stats. So just by you going through the licensing process and getting it done reduces your chance of dying. So just by being in a motorcycle course, you're definitely helping yourself out. Now, the two biggest places that are going to get you on a motorcycle is intersections. When ICBC gets a phone call and someone's making a claim, 73% of those are in an intersection. So those are the most dangerous places you can ride. So as you go through an intersection, you got to ease off the throttle and have an extra look just to be better prepared for what might happen. So be careful with those. Another strategy is to take a route home with less intersections. That is risk control. Take the scenic route. Now with that scenic route though, higher speed corners outside of city limits are a big risk factor as well. So if you're feeling spirited that day and you're just riding corners rather fast, and maybe your skill level is unprepared, or you just overreacted for something, that's a big part of why higher speed corners get so many motorcycle riders. And let's remember back to how we talked to corners. We want to slow down before you get to the corner. That way you're always in more control. Don't rush corners. Don't expect them to be perfect. Now, age groups and motorcycles. So every age group and motorcycle has different risk associated with it. So nobody gets a free pass. There's not one motorcycle or age group that's better than the rest. We all face challenges and risk. So the biggest crowd of motorcyclists is the over 40 crowd. They ride the most. And that's why they have the most number of fatalities and injuries. Now, along with being older, the only problem with that is as we age, our reaction time slows and our healing time lengthens. So while we're a little more calmer out there on the roads, we have added risk in our reaction time. And if we get hurt, we might get hurt more and it'll take longer to heal. So for the younger crowd, especially on sport bikes, they're 4 times more likely to die on that motorcycle. So sport bikes have a ton of power. They're exciting, I get it. I love riding them myself, but I also know they're ridiculous on streets. So getting a calmer sport bike is a good idea. But hey, if it's what you want, it's what you want, but you must be disciplined. And if you're younger, that's a tougher age to be disciplined. And so keep that in mind. If you do want to get into sport bikes, your fatality rate, especially younger, is 4 times as high as any other motorcycle. Doesn't mean you're going to crash. Just means you got to be the most careful when you're on a motorcycle that is not so conservative. Because that motorcycle will move your body so fast with its rapid acceleration that your mind is way back there. It can't keep up with what is going on. And I love track days, so there's definitely an element of speed there. I am still not comfortable going over 200 kilometers an hour. It doesn't last long anyway, but it's that at that speed, whew, man, things come by fast. Corners come up quick. I definitely prefer a track with not such a long straightaway. Cornering is my favorite thing to do. So it doesn't matter what you ride, you got to be safe. Now, there's lots of women riders out there. They're 20% of motorcyclists out there, so they're not immune either. While women are much more conservative and have a better mindset for it, they can also almost be a little too conservative as well, because if you're the slowest person out there in traffic, you do face a lot of risk. So you really have to take a good look at who you are to see what kind of risk you have, and it's up to you to recognize that and control it and discipline yourself. Now, times of the day are pretty important too. The worst time to ride a motorcycle is from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's where most of the fatalities and accidents happen. Now think about why that is. Why is 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. the worst time to ride a motorcycle? Well, it's the end of the day, so people are going to be more tired. There's more traffic on the road. And it's typically happy hour at various restaurants and pubs. And so we're legally allowed to have a drink, maybe 2 in our system, and drive home, but that still affects our judgment. So we got lots of traffic, people are tired, and maybe they had a drink in their system. And so all those factors alter our ability to drive or ride home. The best time to ride is in the morning. So from 6 a.m. till about 12 p.m., best time to ride. Generally, people aren't drinking in the morning. People are more energetic, including yourself, so it's a safer time to ride. So if you're doing big, long day rides, start as early as you can. I prefer 8 a.m., and I want to be off the road by 4 p.m. That's a long day on a bike, and you get a lot of kilometers done. And so that's the best time to ride. Now, evenings are beautiful times to ride, especially in the summer. So if you're going to go ride out in the evening, yeah, you face a bit more risk, but it's just something you'll have to be a little extra disciplined with your speed and your understanding as well. So just take it a little easier in the evenings. In the mornings, yes, you're fresher and more energetic, but don't be too excited in the morning as well, because you may not be warmed up either. Holidays and weekends matter as well. So on weekends, there's definitely more people on the road, so more things happen. Holiday weekends especially. So we have May long weekend, we've got Canada Day long weekend, and Labor Day long weekend. I would highly recommend that you consider not riding on those weekends. They're busier. But I mean, if that's your time off and you want to ride, pick the best day to do that. So most of the times these holidays are a Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. What do you think is the best day of that 3-day holiday weekend to ride? Is it the first day, the middle day, or the last day? I hope you said the middle day, because that is the best day to ride. Because on the first day, people are going to where they're going. On the last day, they're coming home. In the middle, generally everyone should be where they want to be. Now, that said, there's still going to be a lot of police enforcement. So if you are speeding or taking some unnecessary risk, you're most likely to get a ticket on those holiday weekends. So that is a great weekend to not use your motorcycle. Use it next weekend when everyone is generally not going anywhere. So control your risk on the days, times that you ride. It is risk management. Okay, there are good news with the stats, but the news media will never ever report these. But when I look at them and I see how much growth there's been with motorcycling, of course it's getting better. Now, I grabbed these stats from the United States because it's a much bigger population and they track it more. And so from 2005 to 2014, the number of riders grew by 35%. That's a lot of people on the road, but the number of fatalities has remained mostly the same. Now, it was 4,600 in 2005. Now in 2020, it's around 5,000 per year, so it has gone up, but the ridership is significantly higher. So a lot more people on the road, fatalities are about the same. But news media doesn't like reporting that. Injuries are similar as well. There are a few more injuries, but still there's far more riders on the road. So again, a ton more people on the road, less people crashing and hurting themselves. All the safety technology and education out there is making a difference. So it is becoming safer to ride motorcycles. Now, insurance companies insure motorcyclists. Maybe some don't want to, but those that insure cars and motorcycles, they know that a motorcyclist, when they drive their car, they're 20% less likely to make a claim. When we ride motorcycles, we're always looking out, what might hurt us, what might get us. And then when you get in your car to drive, that same mindset still exists. So you become a better driver if you decide to actively ride motorcycles. So yeah, increased risk riding bikes, but less risk in a car now. So a bit of a trade-off. Now, what about motorcycles with ABS? So anti-lock braking, it's a good thing. They've been out long enough now that they can record. They know that a bike with ABS has a 37% less likely to be in a fatal crash. So it's a big number. So I do highly recommend you get a bike with ABS. But as I've mentioned before, it's not the end of the world if you don't have it. Just make your next bike have ABS because the stats do show it helps. So, but ABS is not your insurance policy. It's not a guarantee either. You still have to practice emergency braking and be good about it. Yeah, because like any skill that we learn, if you don't use it, you lose it. So it doesn't matter which demographic you're in, we all face risk. And what bike we ride, what age we are, it's different risk. But you're in control of so much of it. So it's really on you. You have no one to blame but yourself. So take it seriously. Like with what we just went through here, you should be able to sort of pick and choose where the lowest risk is and follow it. It's not just some random fluke. I'm still very healthy, haven't had any major crashes in my life. I've had some close calls for sure, maybe a bit of luck, but most of the people out there don't get into massive crashes. I've personally never lost a friend to a motorcycle crash. I have certainly lost them to cancer, heart attack, stroke, and heart disease. So I'm way more concerned about that. But I I'm very choosy with who I ride with as well. Like, I don't want to ride with someone who's reckless. It's pick your riding buddies wisely, because that does help in your safety as well.